everyone, and a big welcome back to the Forge Ahead Show podcast and video series. I've got a really special guest for you today, and I'll come on to that in a second. But I just want to give a shout out to Dougie Stone Radio, who the amazing sponsors of the show. They are freaking global. Check them out. I'll pop the link in here. But an amazing station, and my mate Mark runs some awesome shows across the week. So hit me up if you want the links to those. And today, I've got a long-term friend, but also somebody I work with a lot. We basically kind of have got that kind of business husband and wife thing going on. Love this. Love her. Lianne Weaver. Hello.
Hi. I like that, business husband and wife. I do boss you around like a wife, so I'll go for that.
Well, the other option was the business Chuckle Brothers, but that has been done as well. So we were thinking about scripting this conversation because actually some of our conversations go quite weird. Also use GIFs, which in a video or podcast format is not so effective, I guess. But yeah, so let's just do this. So the whole theme, the whole thing about the Forge Ahead show is I get people who are emotional storytellers who have been from an adversity to an excitement, get them to kind of share their stories and what inspires them, what makes them tick. I know where it all began. You know where it all began. Why don't you tell the people tuning in?
Okay, so I've known you about 12 years. And when we first met each other, we were both in very different professional and personal circumstances, well, I would say. So when I met you, had an accountancy practice, and I was really, really, really miserable and really unhappy. So I'm someone who's a real high achiever. So I worked really hard. I did a degree in educational psychology, really loved that. And then got a job where they sponsored me to do postgrad in human resource management, really loved that. Worked. And somehow found that I was always taking the sensible route and what I thought other people expected of me, which led me to stay in a relationship that wasn't particularly happy or healthy, and to be in a career that I didn't enjoy. And people always said to me, you don't look like you're in the right job. You don't look like you should be an accountant. And a very long story short is that I kind of woke up one day with this just sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach of I'm not happy. And I really had this sort of sense of survival kick in, that I needed to do something to make me happy and get out of the situation I was in, which was really hard. I'd kind of lost all independence, to be honest, and I didn't have that much family and friend support at that time either. But I just had this feeling that just grew and grew and grew that I needed to get out. So in a very short version of events, I left my life really with my daughter, my dog. I'd scraped together enough money to buy £150 car, which you and I nicknamed the Woo. And
remember the Woo very well, actually.
It was a flux capacitor short of a DeLorean, but yeah.
Or an exhaust pipe short of a car.
Yeah, pretty much, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what that meant was I had to start again. I'd owned my own home since I was 19. I'd been financially quite independent since I was about 15. I'd worked. And it meant that I had to go into rented accommodation with my daughter. I had to claim benefits, and all the things that I thought would never happen to me happened, basically. And I got into a really dark place and was really unhappy, felt like I'd failed, and it almost at kind of 30, that was the end of my life. And that was it. And I wallowed for quite a while. I cut myself off from a lot of people and I was ashamed to be around people because I was embarrassed of having this big successful life and then just losing everything. And then I had this sort of epiphany moment where it was late at night and I went to check on my daughter when she was fast asleep. And anyone who's got kids knows that when they're asleep, they're amazing. When they're awake, they're a problem. And she was about 9 and she was laying there and she just looked so angelic. And I thought, if I carry on being like this, then what example am I setting for her? I don't want her to think that you can't bounce back and you can't do things and you can't make something of yourself. And that was a real turning point for me. So I started reconnecting with what I used to love, which was therapy and studying, and also my spiritual side, reconnecting with all of that, doing lots of different courses until I eventually set up a practice as a holistic therapy practice. And then on doing that, I did things like aromatherapy and Indian head massage. And I kind of realized quite quickly that I don't like touching strangers. But I'm really, really good at talking to them. I'm really, really good at helping people. So I started to specialize more in talking therapies and move more into that field. And I still have the therapy practice now and do things like NLP, EFT, hypnotherapy, coaching. But also on the back of that, I have created a lot of well-being, resilience, happiness courses. So I started off doing those for the public and then started going into businesses and now work with companies all across the country, delivering well-being training, helping employers provide that facility for their staff, but also helping employees to feel more in control and more in charge of how they feel. And obviously at the moment we're in the middle of a pandemic, so business has kind of changed again, and now we're moving all of that training, whether it's the therapy or whether it's the courses, all onto online. So offering online training, either through Zoom, doing webinars and things like that, or we've also created online training through platforms as well. So then also doing one-to-ones through Skype and Zoom and helping people that way. So essentially my life now is helping people to feel happier and healthier, because
that's awesome.
That's the journey I went on. So
that's absolutely awesome. Do you still find that the lived experience part of you, because you have experienced that, you're not just kind of like learned and taught, you have lived it as well, do you feel that still drives you?
I can see it in other people. So none of us will have the same path, and you know, I've gone through stuff, you've gone through stuff, everyone's gone through stuff, and I can see that in other people and see perhaps the fear or the lack of confidence or the lack of self-belief of you could get through it but I don't think I could. I tend to be able to spot that in someone and be able to pull out of them the fact that we've all got that reserve within us, we just sometimes forget.
Yeah, and I think the fact that when you are trying to help other people, the fact that they know that you've been through those experiences really helps that relationship. They kind of buy into you on a deeper connection, a deeper level. I mean, like I said, I've had the pleasure of working with you on like so many events now that actually it's really culture led, that people really get you first and foremost, way before any of the other stuff, like the actual learnings actually happened, that you built that kind of rapport with them. In terms of a different kind of workspaces you work in, what's the kind of the differences that you've seen between organizations to businesses to maybe, I know you've done talks for like Ignite, haven't you? Stage talks and stuff. Does your message change or adapt at all?
Not that. So in terms of my training company, we go into companies that thousands of employees or fancy high-flying London companies where everyone's got suits more expensive than my car, and just, you know, really kind of different environments. But I also have clients that, you know, my most down-to-earth, lovely, wonderful client has got a chip shop in the South Wales Valleys. I'm training staff that are earning six-figure salaries and training staff that are on minimum wage. And I think whilst my accent changes for sure when I go to London, and when I go to the valleys, I become much more Stacey from Gavin and Stacey. But whilst I might change the kind of the cultural way I present stuff, the information is still pretty much the same. And what I find in dealing with those people is the problems may be packaged slightly differently, but essentially we all want to get through life as happily and healthily as we can. We all want to be heard. We all want to be loved. We all want to be noticed. We all want to have some kind of significance. So whether that is a lawyer earning hundreds of thousands or someone on a shop floor, their worth is still as important to me.
Yeah, definitely. And on a very much deeper level, you told me for 10 years you were 23. How old are you now?
I'm about 24 now, yeah.
Okay, oh, so it is kind of starting to creep up a bit there. There's lots of different stuff I like to go into. It got melons, for example, which actually sounds a lot dodgier than the actual truth. We met through a networking organisation, didn't we? And we had like a big night out in Cardiff. Was it Tiger in Cardiff? And they were serving,
very classic joint.
yes, and serving drinks out of melons. See, less dodgy than that.
No, I was tricked. So I turned up a bit late, and you and our mutual friend Ollie, I remember you bouncing up to me because you were both hammered already. And
that sounds about right.
Quick, the cocktails are on 2 for 1, but it finishes like in the next 5 minutes or something. So I was like, oh, okay. I hadn't seen anyone at all, so I didn't see what you were drinking. And I went to the bar and I said, oh, 2 for 1 cocktails. And they said, okay, do you want it in a melon? And I was like, well, who wouldn't? And then I came back carrying this massive melon and have a sense of melon jokes thrown at me left, right, and centre from you. Little did I know there was no one else in the whole club drinking from a melon.
What can I say? You're special. What can we say? So we also have a shared love of The Office, US version, and also Brooklyn Nine-Nine. What else are you kind of watching on lockdown at the moment?
I'm on like my 3rd go over the past few years of watching Gilmore Girls. So Gilmore Girls is absolute just candy floss for the brain. Just there's no real value or worth to it, but it is amazing, and it's feel good, and it's a story of a mum and a daughter, so I can really connect to that. And the fact that whenever people see, and you've experienced this as well, me and my daughter talking, we talk so fast and in our own little language that everyone else is like, what the hell? So, and also the daughter and the mum are pretty feisty, and I know you've experienced the feistiness of my daughter as well.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely like mother like daughter, to be fair.
Yeah,
so with the Speaking Academy stuff, so for those who don't know, I run Speaking Academy, like pre-zombie apocalypse, I was running in-person Speaking Academies. They've gone online since. And Lianne does like the well-being kind of chill out session after the first 2 exercises that I do, which are all around emotional storytelling. So from your point of view as somebody that kind of like chills the room out, do you see the kind of state that you take people from and how you shift that state to something different? Because the reason I bring you in is because, like, you know your stuff. I share experience, but I'm not a solution bringer. The effect you have on a room is phenomenal because it's 2 heavy subjects, and then you manage to lift them. How does that look from your perspective, from somebody who actually has to do that for people, but also protect yourself as well?
That's 2 really good questions. So doing it for people, I love getting people to kind of realize that we actually have so much more control over our emotional state than we believe. So we can take ourselves, particularly on the work that you do, you get people to take themselves to really sad or dark places. And then as soon as we're there, we start to feel it, and you can feel all of that heaviness and the memories start flooding in. But we don't have to stay there. We have the choice, and teaching people tools that enables them to move from that. So we can acknowledge that was sad, that was scary, that was horrible. We can acknowledge it, we can feel it, but we don't need to stay there. I love doing that, and I love seeing how surprised people are, because when we start that, there's often at least like 3 or 4 people crying when we start it. And that's not because of Nick, by the way, that's because they tapped in really emotional.
Yeah, I'm not just like a bully or something, I promise you, there's a reason for everything.
But it's almost like, in the beginning, they're like, oh no, she can't change this, you know, I've tapped into this really horrible memory and that, and then we change it, and you see people smiling. And when we do it in the room, it's a bit harder at the moment, but when we do it in the room, people go and hug each other, and you can just see that change in state. In terms of protecting myself, so once I started to give therapy to people, I had to learn that really quickly. So all my life I've been an empath. I'm someone who feels what other people feel. And up until I started to learn the kind of theory and the science and the psychology behind all of that, what that meant was if anyone sat next to me and they told me a sad story, I'd go away feeling worse than they did, because I just was like a sponge and I soaked it all up. If I did that as a therapist, by lunchtime I'd be crying in the corner, which wouldn't be much good with all the stories I hear.
Yeah.
So I've learned to have some real kind of boundaries and distance, so that I realize that the way I can be most helpful and of most service is to speak to you, acknowledge everything you're going through, but not absorb it.
Yeah.
So I do that through physical ways that I do it. So creating some kind of physical boundaries and barriers, but also emotionally of being aware that it's your story. This isn't my story. It's not for me to think, oh, that reminds me of something sad I went through. This is your story. And it's a real kind of training of the mind to do that. But I know if I don't do that, then I won't be able to help anyone, because I'll be the one crying loudest in the corner.
Absolutely.
So
it's interesting you use the words being a service. I've heard that a couple of times today, actually, from people in like the well-being kind of arena. That actually it is much different to any other area of like business or anything else really, especially right now, given the fact that we are recording this during the coronavirus pandemic, and that can sometimes have a real kind of like weird impact on the decisions we take, and actually combining the fact that we're helping people, but also like the bills need to be paid, that
yeah.
the mortgage doesn't get paid on dreams and missions, as I say. So it's kind of there's a real thing going on right now, isn't there, about how do you help people, how do you be of service whilst trying to keep your business intact and looking after your own kind of corner of the world. What's your kind of thoughts on that right now?
So being of service is something that is kind of my purpose in life. I kind of accept it. I took it on. I accepted the challenge, and I feel that is when I'm at my best, and it's when I do my best. But being of service to others means that I first have to be of service to myself. So I'm really, really aware that for me to help others, I've got to help myself. In terms of kind of payment, as you know, I give away so much free, and I will help anyone and everyone. And I regularly have clients that come to me that are in terrible situation that can't financially pay for my services, but I still help. But I'm aware that there's always got to be an energy exchange. So if you give things away for free and the other person just takes it, then there's no worth in it. It's worthless. So you don't get the benefit and the result because they haven't bought into it. Now, that doesn't always have to be money. Like, you and I regularly help each other, and that's not necessarily a financial exchange, although I will take payment. But we help each other, because I know, I'll call Nick and get him to help me with that, and so we've got that exchange going. And I think at these times where there are some people that have lost their income overnight, there are people who are potentially losing their jobs overnight or their businesses, then to start to being a bit more flexible in what you can take as an energy exchange.
Yeah.
So maybe they can't pay you financially, but maybe they can help you with some marketing, or maybe they can give you a bunch of flowers, whatever it is, just something that creates a buy-in.
Thanks for sharing. I think it's been fascinating recently. There seems to be an element of shaming people trying to do business, and especially in our space, because you kind of, I guess you run the risk of being labelled as an ambulance chaser, or it's a really weird space to work in, especially for somebody who hasn't worked in this space for all of their career. I find it quite interesting from a kind of a social microscope perspective, that you kind of see a lot of shaming going around of people doing business. And like you, I've been giving away lots of content for free, but actually we still need to do that as well. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So another fascinating thing that you do, which I would love to hear more of if you're happy to share, and I'll edit it if you don't.
Okay.
I really won't. Is your coven.
You know so much about me, I'm scared what's coming.
Yeah, no, you go, we're safe, we're good. Is your coven.
Oh, my coven. Yeah, okay, well, I'm happy to do that. So
I've always labelled you as like a guru or a witch, or quite jokingly, I like to add, quite jokingly, but the coven, I rest my case.
So, yeah, Well, I've quite often been called a witch. And I've quite often been told, I've got the nickname, I can think of one lady in particular that calls me Glinda all the time, who's the good witch from Wizard of Oz. And I'm all right with that. I mean, for me, being a witch is about being in tune with nature and the elements and just being a bit more open to things. I don't put hexes or curses or spells on people, don't worry.
But you do hug a lot of trees.
I do hug a lot of trees.
Any of your Instagram followers will notice you do hug a lot of trees. It's a high percentage of trees you hug.
Do you know what? What goes on Instagram is probably about 1% of the trees I hug, though. So years and years ago, I just came up with this concept of creating a coven. So a coven to me is a group of women that gather and share their energy, share their wisdom, share their support, to create a real supportive environment of sisterhood, basically. And I used to do these face-to-face on a weekend for a few years, and they were really popular. And as my business grew, I just didn't have time or capacity to do it. And since the pandemic, lots of people, because I keep those relationships going, so lots of those ladies have reached out to me. So I thought, right, I'm going to try and do a coven online. So we had our first one last week. So we meet on Zoom and we talk to each other about how we're doing. We always have a topic. So last week was all about self-care and realizing that some of us aren't great about looking after ourselves. So working out how we can look after ourselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and loads of suggestions on that. Tomorrow's one is about meditation, so how we can use different form of meditation to get us through this. We're doing one on energy and chakras, one on forgiveness, one on intuition. So it's just a really lovely way to create that sisterhood. And I think you need to do like a warlock version for men. That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely, that sounds amazing. I might be up for that, actually. It's
Yeah.
kind of like I was hoping for it to be a lot more kind of gothic than that, a lot more kind of like pointy hats and cats and stuff. And
yeah, I mean, we sacrifice a few things, but that's all.
Yeah, getting a little bit scared now. I'm gonna lay off the harder questions there just in case. So next up, I'm just about to announce you on stage at the O2 Arena in London. 20,000 people just paid full price tickets to come and see you speak. I'm just about to introduce you. What's your walk-on music? What plays do you walk on?
So this is a silly one. It's Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Suede.
Tune!
You know that Ooga Chaka song?
From Guardians of the Galaxy.
I don't know that bit, but the reason I know...
Have you never seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
No.
Right, we're having a chat off of here about that.
Okay.
Amazing movie. Anyway,
really?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, it's really because it's kind of often played on films or documentaries that are talking about cults. And it seems really, it's when the cult is fun. It's when everyone's going crazy and just having a good, it's before it turns really dark. And that's
before it goes a bit weird.
Yeah, before the leader gets a bit power crazy. It's when it's fun and everyone's hooked on it. So, yeah, Ooga Chaka. Ooga.
Actually, it's great walk-on music. There's a good beat to it as well.
Yeah.
So as I've been joking a lot recently with the speaking academies that Lianne's been part of, that I was saying right at the start, I don't know how this is going to go. This could be the best thing since the internet was created, or actually the worst thing since Joe Exotic and the Tiger King, the biggest car crash. You've heard it here first. The new cult was being formed, but apparently we're going to stay in a happy phase. We're not going to go to the mass shooting kind of phase.
Yeah,
probably not a place to go, really.
No, we won't get to the like give me all your money and weird sexual phase. We'll leave that bit. We'll just stay in the happy dancing bit.
Actually got speechless then. I wasn't quite sure where to go with that, so I'm not going to go anywhere with it. It's probably the best bit. So thank you so much for being on here. Where can people find you?
So I have a YouTube channel, so Beam Therapy and Training. I'm on Facebook, Beam Therapy and Training. You can look me up on Instagram, Lianne Weaver. Twitter, Lianne Beam, and LinkedIn, which I'm really rubbish at, but Nick keeps telling me off about it. So I'm there too somewhere. I don't know, find Nick and you'll find me.
Pretty much the case. I'll pop all of the links on the what am I thinking of? The bio, the write-up kind of stuff. You would never tell that I'm new at this, would you? It's as smooth as anything. But I'm not editing. I refuse to edit. We're keeping it in. So yeah, we'll do the links thing somewhere. You can find a link somewhere. So big thank you to Lianne. What was that?
Sorry, I ruined it.
It's fine. We're keeping all of this in. It's great. You were saying?
I said you'll make some pop out. I wish I hadn't said it.
And this, folks, is exactly why we should have scripted this. Anyway, this has been fun. Thank you so much for sharing what you did. And I'd strongly suggest you connect with Lianne. Big thank you for being on here. Any final parting wisdom from you?
Be kind to each other.
Nice. What a note to finish on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll be back next week for another instalment featuring another very special guest. Take care, guys, and see you soon. Cheers. Bye.